XYZ Library presents the best summaries, literature whispered in your ear. In this episode, discover The Stranger by Albert Camus, Mother Deceased, Funeral Tomorrow, Deep Sympathy. 6 words hastily thrown onto a telegram that Meersalt silently repeats to himself. Mother Deceased, Funeral Tomorrow, Deep Sympathy. The announcement clouds his mind. All he understands is that he must go to the nursing home in Marengo, 80 kilometers from Algiers. We are in French Algeria, a few years before the Second World War. The bus ride is long, the heat oppressive, and Meersalt falls asleep. At the home, he is received by the director, who leads him to the mortuary. That is where he must spend the night keeping vigil over the body. The room is dazzlingly white. At the center lies the coffin, closed. Far from being overcome with emotion, Meersalt seems to experience this misfortune from a distance, like an outside observer. However, when the caretaker approaches to unscrew the lid of the coffin, Meersalt objects. He does not want to see the body, not because he is afraid of looking at his mother's corpse, or because he feels any resentment toward her. No, he simply does not want to, without really knowing why. Sitting on a chair, he listens to the caretaker's chatter and accepts a cup of coffee. Night falls. Meersalt smokes a cigarette, then dozes off. Suddenly, under the blinding light of the lamps, in perfect silence, a small group of old people take seats on chairs facing Meersalt. They are residents of the home, old friends of his mother, who want to take part in the vigil. For long hours, no one says a word. When morning comes, Meersalt can finally leave the mortuary. The funeral is to take place around 10 o'clock in the church of the neighboring village, a 45-minute walk away. Under a crushing sun, the funeral procession sets out. A certain Monsieur Pérez, a close friend of Madame Meersalt within the nursing home, brings up the rear. On the overheated road, everyone moves forward as best they can, tormented by the sun. Whether from indifference or from the heat, Meersalt then loses track of events. And yet this is the most important moment, the burial itself. While his mother disappears forever, Meersalt does not shed a single tear. On the other hand, when he returns to Algiers after that exhausting day, he feels a great sense of relief. At last, he will be able to lie down and sleep. The next day is Saturday. Meersalt decides to take advantage of it by going swimming at the harbor baths. In the water, he runs into Marie Cardona, a young woman who had worked at the same company as he did some time before. They have fun, bask in the sun, and grow closer and closer. That evening, they go to the cinema. In the darkness of the theater, Meersalt kisses Marie. She then spends the night with him in his apartment in the working-class district of Belcourt. Once Marie has left, Meersalt does not know what to do with his Sunday. He wanders around his small apartment, then finally settles on the balcony to watch the comings and goings of the neighborhood's inhabitants. Like a spectator in a theater box, Meersalt follows the story the city tells him, the street and the tram filling with a crowd hurrying out to amuse itself, then the great silence of the afternoon, and finally the return of that same crowd, excited and laughing. Meersalt, however, remains silent. He contemplates life, outside its bustle. The next day, returning from work, Meersalt runs into his neighbors on the stairs of his building. First Salamano, a decrepit little old man who insults his dog, a miserable spaniel suffering from a skin disease. Then Raymond Sintes, a notorious pimp, not much liked in the neighborhood. But all this means nothing at all to Meersalt. He agrees to dine with him. During the meal, Raymond confides in him. Monsieur Meersalt, I'd like to ask your advice about something. You're a man. You know life. Help me, and afterward we'll be friends. You want us to be friends, don't you? Meersalt says nothing, but Raymond tells him his sordid story anyway. Convinced that his mistress has been cheating on him, the pimp wants to punish her. He asks Meersalt to write a letter in his place, a letter that will lure the woman back to him and allow him to take revenge. Meersalt agrees and writes the letter, apparently unaware that he is becoming involved in a sordid affair. Meersalt spends the following Saturday and Sunday with Marie. While they are having lunch together at his place, they hear a woman screaming in the building. Raymond is beating his mistress. He has carried out his revenge. The poor woman is saved by the intervention of a police officer. Raymond is ordered to appear at the police station when summoned. Shocked, Marie leaves. Meursault does not seem affected. A short while later, Raymond knocks at the door. "Meursault, would you be willing to be my witness? You'll just have to tell the police that the girl cheated on me." Meursault agrees. Later that week, Meursault receives a call from Raymond at the office. One of his friends invites them to spend the following Sunday at his beach hut by the sea. Marie is invited as well. Raymond also confides that he is worried. For some time now, he has been followed by a group of Arabs, among whom is the brother of his former mistress. After that conversation, Meursault is summoned by his boss. The latter makes him an offer. He is looking for someone to open an office in Paris. It is a fine promotion. Yet Meursault turns it down. Here or elsewhere, it is all the same to him. Lacking ambition, he does not want to change his life. That same evening, an entirely different sort of proposal is made to him. Marie asks him whether he wants to marry her. Meursault replies that it makes no difference to him, that they can get married if that is what she wants. She wonders what he feels for her. Does he love her? Meursault, with perhaps a little too much honesty, admits that he does not think he loves her. Marie is left speechless for a moment by the strangeness of this young man. Then at last, she renews her wish to marry him. "Yes, we'll do it whenever you want." Sunday arrives, the day of the invitation to the beach hut of Raymond's friend, a man named Maman. As they are leaving the apartment, Raymond points out to Meursault and Marie a group of Arabs silently watching them. Among them is the brother of Raymond's abused former mistress. So, after all, they really have followed them. But the group does not board the bus that is to take them to the beach, located in the outskirts of Algiers. Raymond is reassured. The three friends are welcomed by Maman and his wife. After a pleasant lunch, Maman suggests to Raymond and Meursault that they take a walk on the beach. The heat and the blazing sun are almost unbearable at this hour of the day. Suddenly, at the far end of the beach, two figures come into view. The brother of Raymond's ex-mistress is one of them, along with a companion. So after all, they did follow them. Slowly, the two groups draw nearer until they are face to face. Raymond provokes his mistress's brother, and when the man makes as if to attack him, the pimp strikes him violently. Maman joins the fight. Very quickly, the two men gain the upper hand over the Arabs. Raymond boasts, "You'll see what he's going to get." But at that moment, the brother pulls out a knife. He slashes Raymond's arm and mouth before fleeing with his companion. As quickly as possible, the three friends return to the hut to treat Raymond, whose wounds are only superficial. Raymond, gloomy, broods over his defeat. He cannot bear what has happened and decides to go back to the beach. Meursault goes with him. After a long walk under a blazing sun, they eventually find the two Arabs again, lounging behind a rock. Raymond pulls out a revolver he had hidden in his pocket and whispers, "I'll finish him." Meursault talks him out of it. He cannot shoot someone who is not behaving threateningly. He suggests instead that Raymond hand him the revolver and attack his enemy hand to hand. Is the situation about to turn bad? Just as the tension reaches its peak, the Arabs suddenly hide behind the rock. This unexpected movement seems to bring Raymond back to his senses, and the two men turn back toward the hut. Yet, when he reaches the foot of the wooden stairs of the little house, Meursault feels unwell. The heat overwhelms him. Inexplicably, he goes back to the beach. A sort of struggle against the sun begins. Meursault forces himself to walk in order to triumph over the unbearable light. Suddenly, he spots the rock behind which the two Arabs had hidden some time before. He is surprised to find there the brother of Raymond's mistress. He had not been thinking about him at all anymore, but the man, clearly, has not forgotten him. Meursault feels threatened by his presence. The Arab gets up and brandishes his knife. Meursault takes a step forward, a futile attempt to escape the sun that is tormenting him. In his opponent's hand, the blade is nothing more than a flash of blinding light. Feeling terrible, Meursault tightens his hand around the revolver. The trigger gives way. Unintentionally, he has just shot the Arab. The inert body lies at his feet. Disoriented, Mirsalt fires 4 more times into him. Only then does he realize that he has committed the irreparable, like 4 brief knocks at the door of unhappiness. Mirsalt is arrested for murder. But even in a situation this grave, he remains calm, as if insensitive to what is happening to him. During the interrogations, he merely answers the questions put to him, as honestly as possible. But what he says pleases neither his court-appointed lawyer nor the examining magistrate. In order to help his case, the 2 men, one after the other, try to make him say things that will make him seem pitiable and remorseful. Listen, there are things I do not understand in your act, but you are going to help me understand them, aren't you? But Mirsalt confines himself to repeating the truth. He does not know why he fired 4 shots into a body lying on the ground. He feels no regret, only boredom. Disconcerted, the lawyer ends up neglecting him. The examining magistrate, at the end of his patience, loses his professionalism and tries to push him down the road of repentance by waving a crucifix in front of his eyes. I am a Christian. I ask Jesus Christ to forgive your sins. How can you not believe that he suffered for you? All in vain. In their eyes, Mirsalt is either an enigma or a monster. He quickly loses interest in his own case. In his cell, Mirsalt gradually gets used to prison life, an almost vegetative existence. If the first months are somewhat difficult, he eventually finds ways to fight boredom, recalling his apartment in the smallest detail, rereading a sinister news item printed on an old scrap of newspaper, forgotten under his bed, and above all, sleeping. He receives only 1 visit at the start of his imprisonment, from Marie. In the visiting room, she tries to give Mirsalt hope. You'll see, you'll get out and we'll get married. But he does not seem to believe it. The months pass, 11 months. Then comes the trial. In the courtroom, the heat is suffocating. Mirsalt takes his place in the dock, and the questioning begins. Very quickly, the questions drift away from the charge itself, the murder of the Arab, and turn instead toward Mirsalt's behavior at his mother's funeral. Witnesses are called, the director and the caretaker of the nursing home where Madame Mirsalt lived. The presiding judge questions them. Was the accused sad on the day of the funeral? Did he cry? Both men answer in the negative. Mirsalt did not cry. He did not want to see the body, and he smoked and drank coffee in front of his mother's remains. A crushing silence falls over the courtroom. Marie is then called to the stand. How long has your relationship with the accused existed? Was it not the day after his mother's death? Marie is forced to agree, and then to summarize the day they met. When she falls silent, the prosecutor points an accusing finger at Mirsalt. Gentlemen of the jury, the day after his mother's death, this man was bathing in the sea. He began an illicit affair and went laughing to a comic film. After that, I have nothing more to say. Then it is Massen's turn, then Salamano's, then Raymond's. It only makes things worse. It becomes clear that Mirsalt helped a notorious pimp by giving false testimony in order to prevent him from being convicted of violence toward his mistress. The prosecutor drives the point home. The same man who, the day after his mother's death, gave himself over to the most shameful debauchery, killed for trivial reasons, and in order to settle an unspeakable affair of morals. At these words, Mirsalt's lawyer protests. But after all, is my client accused of burying his mother or of killing a man? To which the prosecutor replies, Indeed, I accuse this man of having buried his mother with the heart of a criminal. The hearing is adjourned, and Mirsalt is taken back to prison. The next day, the trial resumes with the lawyer's pleadings. The Attorney General's speech is devastating. He demands Mirsalt's head, calling him insensitive, criminal in soul, and monstrous. Faced with such vehemence, Mirsalt speaks and awkwardly tries to defend himself. He had no intention of killing the Arab. If he did it, it was because of the son. The absurdity of this motive causes laughter in the courtroom. When his own lawyer begins his plea, Mirsalt is astonished that he is speaking in his place, as though he himself were not there. It seems endless to him. He feels superfluous in the middle of this room where his destiny is being decided. After a recess, the verdict is finally delivered. In a leaden silence, Meursault hears the presiding judge announce the sentence. The accused is condemned to have his head cut off in a public square. Back in his cell, Meursault cannot help hoping that the infernal machinery preparing to crush him will somehow jam by miracle. He has even filed an appeal. One evening, he receives a visit from the chaplain, though he had refused to see him several times before. With compassion, the priest tries to speak to him of God, of the benefit he would gain from placing himself in divine hands. Meursault does not want to hear any of it. It does not interest me. Faced with the priest's insistence, he suddenly flies into a rage. He grabs the man of God by the collar of his cassock. He pours out all his rage on him, demonstrating the absurdity of human life, all equally condemned to the same morbid fate. All of them the same. This life is absurd. What do I care about the death of others? The love of a mother. The guards then burst in to rescue the poor chaplain. What do I care? Once alone again in his cell, a great calm invades Meursault. As though purged of that absurd hope that had tormented him, he listens to the nighttime sounds reaching him from outside, the sounds of a world indifferent to what is happening to him, and he feels himself in harmony with that indifference. Now, for the tragedy to come to its proper end, there remains only one thing he wishes: for everything to be consummated, for me to feel less alone. All that remains is to hope that there will be many spectators on the day of my execution, and that they will greet me with cries of hatred. And there it is. It is on this rather astonishing sentence that Albert Camus's novel ends. If I chose to tell it in the third person in this episode, know that in Camus' text, it is narrated in the first person by the main character, Meursault. It also seems important to point out that Meursault is a surname. We do not know his first name. It is never revealed in the novel. Written in 1942, in the midst of the Second World War, The Stranger belongs to what Albert Camus himself called the cycle of the absurd. This cycle refers to 4 of his works: an essay, 2 plays, and a novel, The Stranger, in which the author lays out his philosophy of the absurd. According to him, life has no meaning. We endlessly repeat the same routine whose only outcome is death, within the indifference of a world that continues without us. Human beings, however, stubbornly try to find meaning in their existence. Faced with this absurdity of life, Camus advocates acceptance. Rather than fleeing this reality, one must accept it and make the most of what remains of our life on Earth. In a sense, that is what Meursault does at the end of the novel. He accepts his strangeness in relation to other men, and that is no doubt where the title, The Stranger, comes from. Not only is Meursault strange in everyone's eyes, because his way of thinking does not seem logical to us, but he is also a stranger because of his indifference, an indifference that sets him apart from ordinary people. Finally, one might also say that he is a stranger to his own life. His acts are often set down by Albert Camus without Meursault himself knowing why he acts as he does. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, do not hesitate to leave a good comment and share it around you. We have done our best to bring you the most faithful summary possible of this essential work. But as always, the best thing is still to read it for yourself. Albert Camus' style greatly shapes the way one can perceive this novel. Also know that it was adapted for the cinema in a film made in 1967 by Visconti, and also adapted into a graphic novel and a manga. The links are in the description. See you very soon.